case you missed it, it's the top 5 sports talkers of the day. Now, it's time for Dan Barrero's Top 5 at 5. Brought to you by Gutter Helmet of Minnesota. Never clean your gutters again. Learn more at gutterhelmetmn.com.
All right, by the way, I'm assuming that we will be out at about 4:30, or I will be out at 4:30 on Friday for Gopher Women's Basketball.
You want to do it that way?
Well, I'm telling you, do we have a policy on this?
We don't as of now, however, because I have to be gone, obviously.
Yeah, that I figured.
Brett Blakemore may have a conflict on Friday.
Really?
We're trying to figure out if there's.
Let me guess, he's afraid of another snowstorm.
It's supposed to be like 51, I think, that day.
Oh, that's right, I forgot.
So we're trying to figure out exactly what we're
so
going to do.
Logistically, it might be the kind of show I would have to do by myself, including being in the room you're in, which I don't think I'm capable of doing yet.
Yeah, you can figure it out.
I might be able to. Well, we'll talk about it. I mean, we'll see. I think Abbott's taking some time, is he not?
Yeah, he's on spring break, basically.
Exactly.
So that's the other complication.
Okay, well, we'll figure it out.
Is the boss. But, yeah, we'd love to have
Does that mean you're out on Enough Said this week?
No.
You will be able to make that?
I should be able to make that.
Let's get a little tight.
Yes. Not for the game. I should be all right.
You got pregame stuff to do, too, don't you?
I do, right before Enough Said, usually.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So the way that it works. So it's just another busy day in the life of Gaardsy. You know, nothing we haven't done before. We'll figure it out. We'll get it done. Just another day in the life. Just another day in Timberwolves basketball. Yesterday in Oklahoma City, Julius Randle woke up. That was good. He had a good game with 32 points. Unfortunately, with a slim lead at the end of the third quarter, the Wolves allowed Oklahoma City to go on a big run in the final couple of minutes of the third to pretty much take over the thing. And the Thunder knock off the Wolves 116-103. Did not take advantage of SGA not shooting well in the first half. And then not even playing much in the second quarter. They even brought it up on the game that SGA's been on the bench for a long time, and the Wolves weren't really chipping into the lead. SGA came back, and they took the lead for a minute, briefly, and held it for a while. But they did not win the SGA less minutes like you would hope and end up losing the game.
And remember, they're still playing without their second-best player. It felt...
Jalen Williams?
Yes, it felt pretty predictable to me in that you knew, because I do think the Wolves' initial defense was good on the first shots by OKC, but you knew they were going to shoot better. They execute too well, and eventually that's what they did. They executed the crap out of us, and we still don't know what to do about that when push comes to shove. We got nothing out of Rudy. We got nothing out of Jaden. We finally got a good professional game out of Julius Randle and it's ironic because we spent much of sermons, not much, but a section of sermons laying out the game log from Julius Randle in March. Hideous. He's shooting from three, shooting like 11%, and a lot of turnovers. And beyond that, of course, when he doesn't play well offensively, his defense suffers. We've seen that as well. He emerges and plays really well, but there's so little production going on elsewhere. And by the end of it, it didn't feel, again, it felt like a lark that OKC can come out of that game going, that might have been the worst game that SGA has played in 2 years, and we still won by double digits.
That's what they do,
It didn't even matter. And I threw this at Johnny. I mentioned it in yesterday's show. I understand complications on moving pieces around. I would start tomorrow night. I would start Dosunmu. I would put him in the starting line. Take out whoever you want. Probably the guy who deserves to be taken out is Jaden. The problem is that's a different position. And I know Dante loves starting, and it's a point of pride, and he's played better. But I'm telling you, he's more disciplined with the ball. He's not as loose with the ball as everybody else. He's a smart player who plays with some discipline, and guess what? With some edge. From the start of the game, the Wolves would actually, in a game where they need to start fast against Phoenix, right? They got to stop messing around. I would do it tomorrow, and I'd make the other players adjust. I don't think Finchie's going to do that. Sometimes, in fact, I wonder whether we're too stable in terms of our starting lineup. I think this is the most there's no starting lineup that's played more games or started more games than ours. Is that good or bad? Sometimes I'm not so sure it's automatically good, but it wasn't just Asumu shooting well. It's just the way he goes about playing. There's a no-nonsense aspect to it, direct line action. I think he understands about getting people involved. He can score, and I think, is less likely to turn the ball over. Our main players are all turnover machines right now, and if you're not going to put a real point guard in the lineup, put the next best thing, which is a guy who can, at least for significant parts of a game, can fulfill that role.
So the Wolves are tied with the same record as the Denver Nuggets right now, but the Nuggets must have the tiebreaker because they are the 5 seed. The Wolves are the 6. They're a game and a half out of third, where they were like a week ago. They are a game and a half ahead of the 7th place team. You mentioned them, the Phoenix Suns, who they're in the catbird seat of nobody expects anything from us. We're coming in and we're just going to try to beat you because we're Phoenix and here we are. They come to town tomorrow night, a random Tuesday game, one of those March games, and here come the Suns. Here's the problem for the Wolves. There's a million of them. They've been one of the healthiest teams in the league.
That's true.
And now they're starting to get banged up a little bit. Naz's shoulder's bad. Ant's been dealing with the leg thing. It's like, so you're going to start hearing that, I fear, like, on the injuries now. It's like, well, they've been healthy all year and been screwing around.
That's it.
With a lot of this stuff. So I can't feel too bad for them.
They've taken away their own margin for error, unfortunately. And it's like they've dropped 4 of their last 5. And by the way, all those games have been complete decimations to double-digit losses. I think I did the average margin of loss, 20 points in losing 4 of their last 5. And they were no bargain against Golden State. That game was a lot more difficult, although the interesting flourish there that we didn't get to with Johnny, which we discussed on yesterday's Sermons broadcast, is that Julius Randle never got back into the lineup the last 9 minutes of the fourth quarter, and that did seem to be a statement on how he was playing. Maybe it helped, because he obviously awakened with a very good game. That was the one bright spot yesterday.
The Wild have also lost 4 of 5 and 3 in a row.
Yeah.
The Toronto Maple Leafs, last
non-playoff teams.
Yeah, last flight into town on Saturday night, and they came in to knock off the Wild 4-2. So as you look at the standings, the Wild now continuing to fall behind Dallas with not that many games to go, right? I mean, we're counting down. There was a time where you thought, because the Wild were playing so well, maybe they can catch Dallas, maybe they can get home ice for that inevitable first-round playoff series, but they are 6 points behind the Stars right now, and Dallas has 2 games in hand.
And I believe next we got home and home with the Blackhawks, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, right? Tomorrow is on the road,
and
right?
Back
That's all Lori wanted to talk to Bill Guerin about on Friday was,
very strange.
What are you going to do for St. Patrick's Day in Chicago? What a great time to be there.
Yeah.
And Bill's like, we got a game, Lori.
The best moment of the show Friday night with Bill Guerin was when in the middle of a Guerin sentence, Lori said enough said, and Guerin literally stopped on that word, looked up and said, what? So I have to stop right now?
Yeah.
He didn't quite get the bit.
It was so good.
But it was perfect.
But then the next part, if you recall, the next time he was talking and Lori did the 30 seconds, he goes, I hear you, Lori.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
People need to go back and watch on
I
Fox
hope we don't have to
Local.
worry about, has been suggested by a former colleague, an enough said curse, because the Wild have not won since Guerin appeared on our show.
They also had lost the game before.
That's what I'm holding on to right there. Yeah, that's what we got to hold on to.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. The Gopher women's basketball team learned on Saturday they are hosting the first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament, March Madness. First time in over 20 years they have hosted. First time as a program they've earned it with the work they've done this year and not a predetermined hosting bid. They are the 4 seed in one of the Sacramento regions. They will take on Green Bay Friday afternoon, 5 o'clock at Williams Arena. Ole Miss and Gonzaga, the first game in that quadrant. Those 2 teams will play here 2:30 on Friday. Tickets available, gophersports.com.
What are the Vegas odds for us? What do we I'm assuming we'd be favored.
Somebody said they saw like 20 points were favored
really?
by.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I bet you your head coach doesn't want to hear about that.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
A lot of interesting tentacles in that. A lot of Minnesotans on that team. Gophers have Wisconsin players.
Now, does Green Bay travel well? Do we know?
I think they will. It's a very successful program. When we went over there a few years ago, the place was packed for the WNIT game.
Is that where Gottlieb coaches?
Yes. Yes, he's the men's coach.
Are they
there.
in the men's tournament?
No.
Oh.
They had a pretty good season, though, all things considered. They weren't, not much was expected of them.
Right.
Remember, they came here and almost beat Nico. It was just a choppy, ugly, horrible game.
Yeah.
And then they actually turned out pretty well. The Green Bay coach replaced Don Plitzowite at South Dakota before taking the Green Bay job. So there's a lot of back and forth there, but 5 o'clock. The men's basketball team, we just learned, has accepted an invitation to the Crown, one of the new postseason tournaments that started last year in Nebraska.
Is this the one in Vegas?
It's the one in Vegas.
Okay.
April 1st, Nico's club, so it's weeks from now, will take on Baylor in Las Vegas.
Okay.
So Mike Grimm gets to go to Vegas. And if the Gophers win, I get to go to Sacramento. Doesn't seem fair.
Is Grimm getting nervous?
About what?
Well, you.
Oh, no.
The ascending Gaardsy star.
No, he's not.
I'm just wondering.
No, he's not nervous. Nor should he
the
be.
last thing I want to do is stir that up.
No, I know. You don't love controversy at all.
At all. Well, 763 guy is bitter because he had this scoop at 4:30, and I appreciate it. I appreciate his diligence, and I don't want to. I want this to be taken the right way.
You don't want to minimize the Crown.
It's a nice nugget.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it, and it was important to include the top 5 at 5. But it ain't earth-shattering news.
We don't need to stop the show.
It's not even the NIT tournament, for God's sake. And so, okay. To be honest with you, I was after being very positive about a lot of what's happened this season for Nico in his first year, I was disappointed with the finish. They got destroyed at Indiana, a team that ultimately did not even make. They think they were one of the first 4 out. And then they followed that up, I thought, with a disappointing performance that was against Rutgers, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So, again, that doesn't take the shine off of, the encouraging aspects of being in almost every game in a season where they basically had 4.5 players. But I didn't like the finish. And what the finish reminded me of? If you don't get more people and you don't get people to stay here, we're not going to be as excited about moral victories of, not getting blown out very often. And so the cautionary tale is there's no rest for the weary here. You have to hit the ground running, add more people, because the look that the last 2 games I don't think was particularly distinguished.
I think that's what I got.
That's plenty. I'm going to get to Ode to a Dead Guy when we come back, and then we'll prepare to talk travel with our guy Kyle Potter. There's a lot to get to, not just weather-related, but obviously what's going on at the airports in terms of security. It seems as if the lines are lasting longer and longer and longer. Is there any relief in sight there? We'll get to all of that and any of your questions when he joins in about 15 minutes. Provides us with what appears to be the original restaurant / bar / nightclub scene at the Mall O Hysteria.
Yep.
Gatlin Brothers Music City Sports Bar. Lil Diddy's. I don't remember that.
Me neither.
Puzzles. I vaguely remember that one. Players Bar and Grill.
I loved Players.
I think I do remember that place.
I would eat there a lot.
Yeah.
I would eat there a lot.
Fat Tuesday.
Okay.
Hooters.
Yep.
Knuckleheads.
The Comedy Club.
And Gators. So what did Gators, was that a restaurant?
I don't know. I don't remember Gators.
Yeah, I don't remember much about Gators. But that's the Dan Minnesota list. This is coming up because we did Ode to a Dead Bar. Hooters closing at the Mall of America after 33 years. End of an era as well. We'll talk travel in just a few minutes with the aforementioned Kyle Potter, but first.
And now, it's time for Ode to a Dead Guy.
Well, of course, my roots are ink-stained wretch in nature. Newspapers, grew up with 4 of them in the Chicago area. Actually 5, because there was the Gary Post-Tribune. There was the Chicago Tribune. There was the Chicago Daily News. There was the Chicago Sun-Times. And there was the Chicago American. Think about that. 5 newspapers I had access to on a daily basis once upon a time. That's a long, long time ago. But I bring that up now because we're oding an ink-stained wretch, a nationally renowned ink-stained wretch to boot, and a name that I'm guessing some of you have read without necessarily, paying all that much attention to the byline. He won a pair of Pulitzer Prizes, was known basically for covering from war zones all over the world. Afghanistan, Bosnia, the list goes on and on. Baghdad. He has passed away at the age of 81 years old. Worked for 40 years as the Pulitzer Prize-winning foreign correspondent for the New York Times. Reported from South Africa, the Soviet Union, Canada, India. I mentioned Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iraq, and London. He apparently passed away late last week in a care facility, the New York Times reports, on the outskirts of Cambridge, England, at the age of 81 years old. As the Times writes, in his writing, Mr. Burns displayed a deft ability to capture the sweep of history, along with the telling detail of the present. A 1992 article, for instance, began with a description of a cellist, Vedran Smolovic, playing Adagio in G minor under artillery fire in the ruined streets of Sarajevo, besieged capital of Bosnia and Herzegovina, to commemorate the city's dead. The article went on to take note of the city's cosmopolitan history, dating to its founding in the 15th century. And by 1992, Mr. Burns wrote, quote, "It was a wasteland of blasted mosques, churches, and museums, of fire-gutted office towers, hotels, and sports stadiums, and of hospitals, music schools, and libraries punctured by rockets, mortars, and artillery shells." He was one of those reporters who clearly was well brought up in the grand tradition that once upon a time said, if you want to be a reporter, you want to be a reporter covering the world, be a good generalist, right? Read everything. Pay attention to everything. Give yourself a chance to offer that kind of context and history as it pertains to what was taking place in what was once upon a time very much war-ravaged Sarajevo. And he did all of those things. The Times notes he tilted passionately against what he saw as the slavish commitment to ideologies bred by dictatorships of any hue. And he acknowledged that, not infrequently, he had been among those journalists saved by editors from the excesses of their passion with the cruel but necessary judgment of the blue pencil. By that, he's saying everybody needs an editor. Even Pulitzer Prize-winning foreign correspondents can be helped out by a good editor, maybe reining them in, you could say, just a little bit. There's a quote from a former foreign editor of the Times. John Burns was most himself when invisible, the full force of his talent and personality revealed in his matchless dispatches from around the world, and even more in his signature memos. In the 1980s, after he had joined the Times from the Toronto Globe and Mail, he embarked on an unauthorized 1,000-mile motorcycle journey into the hinterlands of China, where foreigners were not permitted to travel. He was eventually arrested, charged with espionage, a charge that he ridiculed and which was later dropped, and deported as well. He was the head of the Times Baghdad Bureau following the invasion of Iraq in 2003, and his tenure there inspired a long article in Vanity Fair that spoke of personal rivalries, dysfunction, and divisions as well. He, as I said, he was one of those reporters, it was fairly clear, who had to be in the middle of stuff, right? That he was not going to be a very satisfied individual on the sidelines. So no matter what the danger was, no matter how difficult the circumstances might be, he wanted to be in the middle of it. And that's a gift, man. Not everybody has that. A lot of people talk about it. Not everybody has the will to want to do what has to be done to gain the credibility to put you in the position where the newspaper editors say, we got to go, who are we going to send? Well, it's got to be John Burns. In fact, if we don't send John Burns, he'll probably threaten some of us as well. He was born in October 1944 in the English city of Nottingham, where his South African father was a high-ranking officer and pilot in the Royal Air Force. His mother, a wartime nurse, and later accompanied her husband to a variety of post-war military assignments in West Germany and other countries, which again would indicate within the family there was a sense of the world, right? He had the kind of upbringing that I think indicated, not particularly surprising, that his goals would be to get out there and cover pretty much everything. He got to places nobody else did in the events leading up to and shaping the world after the September 11 attacks. Burns became the newspaper's first Islamic affairs correspondent, notably covering the October 2000 assault on the USS Cole in Yemen, and went on to coordinate coverage and report on the war in Afghanistan from Kabul and Islamabad in Pakistan in the early 2000s as well. Two quotes I want to finish with here, and a lot of the reason why I thought it was important to properly salute. I know it's not fashionable to salute an ink-stained wretch in 2026. I get that, but I don't care. It doesn't matter. I don't know that we'll have another chance to do this, so let's do it while we can. And when he left the staff of the Times in 2015, he talked about what he described as the norms that had governed his reporting of events. And in doing so, he quoted a former executive editor there named A.M. Rosenthal, a very famous former executive editor, as saying that the essence of the paper's journalism should be, quote, keeping the paper straight. Quote, the commitment to fairness and balance and to shunning conventional truths when our reporting leads us in unexpected directions has been our gold standard, and one that I, like other reporters, undoubtedly failed on occasions when my passions and the passions of those around me ran at their highest. But he offered up then a cautionary word that is, I think, as relevant today as when he said it some 10-plus years ago. In our time, it has become common for young reporters to give us, or I should say, for young reporters to give as their moral code, indeed as their reason for choosing the profession, that they aim to create a better world. It is a handsome thing, but one that can foster a missionary complex, a hubris even, that can favor a blindness to inconvenient facts to the advantage of others. That's about as eloquent a way of saying better to follow the story where it goes rather than to follow the story where we want it to go. I hope that never goes out of fashion, but that's the sort of, I think, traditional, old-fashioned, meat and potatoes reporter that John Burns represented in that sense, philosophically. He's saying you go to report the story. You start saying, I want to do good and I want to make the world a better place. The danger, as good as that sounds, is you start paying attention to the stuff that you think makes the world a better place rather than what is actually transpiring in that particular story. It should hold up. I hope people pay attention to it. Sadly, they probably won't. Gone but not forgotten, a very successful, distinguished, and in all the most meaningful ways, brilliant, ink-stained wretch named John F. Burns, gone at the age of 81 years old. We'll come back, and we will chat travel with our old buddy Kyle Potter. That's next, right here in the Fan. Questions for Kyle Potter, Thrifty Traveler, MN.com guy, are already coming in, actually, but you have some. Hit the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line at 64686. By the way, Gaardsy, did you see the text? Just came in. I know the guy who owned the Panakugan Hoos in St. Louis Park who was listening to the show, and last I heard, he was opening a new one in Plymouth. Did we know that?
Yes.
Okay, I couldn't remember.
I don't know. I didn't know it was the same guy, but it's not necessarily Pannenkoeken Hoos, the brand. It was Lattice,
that's
right?
right.
The pizza
That's
place.
right. Yeah,
we
yeah.
talked about it at the
Yeah,
time.
you're right.
They are bringing in a Pannenkoeken Hoos type breakfast to the pizza place, I think.
Okay, that's what it
how
was.
the story went.
You're right about that. I wonder if Kyle Potter, have you ever considered branching out? I mean, you've created an empire in the travel industry. So the way it's supposed to work is, well, I got what's my next, mountain to climb. Is it possible you could create the same sort of empire, perhaps on the restaurant industry side, service industry side as well? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, but I'm all about evil skeevers. Forget about Pannenkoeken. You got to go with the little dough balls.
Oh, okay.
Instead.
All right. Well, that you would know it better than me. I've talked a good game on the Hoos, Pannenkoeken Hoos, more than I've actually ever went there to the one in St. Louis Park, which for many, many years was about 5 minutes from where I lived. I think I just like saying Pannenkoeken Hoos. I think that's a lot
confirmed,
of it.
yeah.
Yeah, there's no question about that. All right.
It really does roll off the tongue.
It does. It definitely does. Been a very busy stretch for you, obviously, between weather and Homeland Security issues and security inspectors availability. Why don't we start with the weather side of this thing? Are we close at Minneapolis, St. Paul? Are we close to getting back to normalcy, or is the system still catching up? Where are we?
I think we're pretty much back to normal here in Minneapolis after a pretty rough Sunday, which just goes to show, canceling 300 plus outbound flights, another 300 plus arrivals. It's painful for people, especially for people who are scrambling to get back home now, and in some cases aren't going to be able to get on some flights back to Minneapolis for another couple of days, maybe. But the reason why airlines do this is so that they can hit the reset button.
Yeah.
It's basically like these airlines go into hibernation mode, knowing that trying and likely failing to fly yesterday would have just made today even more painful and would have done what we have seen again and again over the last 5-6 years, which is that these things just tend to drag on for days once things get out of control. So fortunately, things are looking really good for tomorrow.
I got a question in anticipation to your visit that came in right before the start of the show from a tweeter. Why did Delta wait so long to issue a weather waiver? Did they take advantage of folks wanting to change dates by charging them early on and then eventually did it for free starting Friday, only 2 days prior to the storm? Can you speak to any of that?
Yeah, so these waivers are a chance for passengers who are flying on a day when there's going to be bad weather or some kind of major disruption to change their flights by a couple of days, in some cases up to a week in this case, without paying fees or fare differences. And honestly, the timing on this one didn't strike me as unusual. I think in part because airlines are just doing these things a little bit later now because I think it takes people time to really accept and start to trust a forecast that things are going to get ugly and they really do need to rethink things. So I don't know. I think it's more of an art than a science. I don't see any reason myself to really kind of question that Delta waited too long to do this. They published their waiver maybe mid-morning on Friday. So I don't know that they really could have done it a lot sooner.
So how bad at its worst did it get? And as you said, is it you make it a little less painful, as painful as for people who have their flights canceled on them, that when you eliminate some to give yourself a better chance to, at the time the weather improves as dramatically as it now has, to get yourself up to speed as quickly as possible as an airport?
Yeah, that's it. That's the name of the game, and it's a decision that, primarily the airlines operating, here in Minneapolis, of course, Delta being the biggest, but Sun Country, and then, all of the other Southwest and United and American, a lot of those, especially those smaller carriers without such a big presence here, say, you know what, we're just not flying into Minneapolis because they start their day in Chicago or in Dallas or in Newark. And their first flight of the day comes from that city into Minneapolis, and they just basically said, you know what, we're just not going to go until at least later in the day. So by the end of things, on Sunday, there were almost 75% of departures canceled in Minneapolis. I can't remember the last time I saw that number. It's been years. And, a similar amount of arrivals as well. I think it was in the neighborhood of 65, 66% of arrivals canceled into Minneapolis yesterday. And there's still some cancellations today, but a lot of that was things that airlines did days ago in preparation for exactly what you're talking about, trying to give the airline time and space to reset the airline so that they have all of their crews and all of their planes in place when everything is back to clear skies and good to go.
All right. So give us a sense of where we are on the fact, what is it? I think upwards of, 50,000 TSA officers and staff missing their paychecks due to the partial shutdown, which is having an impact on wait times through the security lines, et cetera. Let's start directly with what you know about what's going on in that regard at our airport.
Here in Minneapolis, it just doesn't really seem like this same script had started to play out just yet. So not this past weekend, but the weekend prior, things started to get really ugly at airports like Houston, Atlanta, New Orleans, and then it turns out that there were just massive amounts of TSA agents who, at this point, now we're going on a full month without full pay, were calling out sick. And so far, we haven't seen that happen here in Minneapolis. I'm sure they are dealing with some elevated levels of employees calling out, but not more than they can handle, and not to the level of seeing, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 2 hours, maybe even more delays at TSA. We just fortunately haven't seen that yet.
And do we know why that is?
I have to think it's just the regionality of the workforce.
Right.
That the workforce here is committed until they won't be. And this is the fear, right? Is that the longer this goes on, this is going to become not just a regional pocket of Houston yesterday and Atlanta today and Austin tomorrow, but truly becomes a widespread thing. And unfortunately, I think what the last few showdowns have shown the people in Congress and in Washington, D.C., is that they can and will wait until that happens. So it's really only a matter of time before this isn't just happening also in Minneapolis, it's happening truly nationwide.
And we don't have so far, I know you don't necessarily cover Washington directly, but this is all sort of connected. We don't have any indication of that part of this getting resolved, regarding the sort of the impasse in Washington to I guess get the funding here restarted.
If there is, I'm not aware of it. I know that Democrats have tried to put up a standalone bill to fund just the TSA and just the Coast Guard and maybe a handful of other agencies. But, part of the problem here is that, one, this is a very limited shutdown. This is not a full-scale 45-day shutdown of the federal government like we saw earlier this year or late last year. We're talking about just DHS. And two, and maybe more importantly, all eyes are on Iran now. And there is just not the kind of public awareness or care about TSA workers, about long lines at airports that there would have been just a month or so ago. So this is, my fear is, and I really, really hope I'm wrong. I hope that if these people come to their senses and figure something out to get these woefully underpaid to begin with TSA agents who are, in the middle of the second significant stretch without pay in the last 4 months. It's absurd. But my fear is because of these things, because the shutdown is so limited in scale, because we're talking about, war in the Middle East again, that there just isn't going to be the attention to this or the impetus to get this done.
Is there, based on the reporting you guys have done, is there a tipping point here? Is it a date? Or are there other things that might govern that? Because as you say here, it sounds like it hasn't been as bad at some regions and some airports across the country, but is that likely to change as this goes on?
If there is a tipping point, I would imagine it was last Friday when, this entire workforce got their first full zero paycheck.
That's true, yeah.
So it's very possible that in the coming days we're going to see this. And again, I just need to repeat, this is the second long shutdown with no pay for these workers. This is going to have an exacerbating effect on that workforce. These people, I mean, who in their right mind, no matter how committed they are to the job, is going to go back to that job after what's happened in November and again, right now? I can't imagine. And who is going to join and train to join that workforce, knowing that this is what happens, that they are constantly a political football and used for leverage to try to force whatever deal people are looking for in D.C.
Let me get to, we've got a lot of texts that have come in for Kyle Potter, including this one. For MSP, this is from 612 guy, for MSP spring break travelers, is there any meaningful difference between security wait lines at terminals 1 and 2? If I'm flying Sun Country out of 2, can I be less panicked about needing to be there 5 hours early?
So far, I'm surprised by this. So far, I would say that Terminal 2 has, on the whole, been better than Terminal 1.
Okay.
And I think things at Terminal 1, the primary terminal for Delta and American and United,
right?
Things have been moving quite smoothly, especially compared to the flare-ups that we've seen in other major airports across the country. But every time I've checked and the data that I've looked at, Terminal 2 has been doing better. But again, this could all change tomorrow, let alone a couple of weeks from now, depending on when you're heading out for spring break. And the final wrinkle there is depending on which day you're flying out. If it's a peak day, if it's a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning for Sun Country flying down to, anywhere warm south of here, that is about as busy as that terminal ever gets. And I don't know that TSA ever has enough people to really keep things moving, let alone when they're in the middle of a shutdown. So my fear would be, especially as we get into this coming weekend, things could get really gnarly. So I know it sucks, but the best thing that you can do is just give yourself more time. If you don't give yourself enough time, you're going to be kicking yourself when you miss your flight.
So when you say more time, are you saying more like 3 to 4 hours instead of usually I think people say 2, right, to be safe. Is it more like 3 or 4 or even more?
I mean, personally, if I were checking a bag, and I would encourage everybody, skip a line if you can. If you don't need to join that check line bag, which, those Terminal 2 lines for Sun Country this weekend are going to be pretty atrocious to check in a bag. If you can skip a line, you can maybe cut it closer. If you have to check a bag, personally, I'm probably thinking about 3 hours.
Yeah,
in case. Better safe than sorry.
That makes some sense. Another 612 texter says he's going to the Big Island Friday for spring break. Lots of storms in Hawaii recently. Curious to know what Kyle knows about Big Island being open and airport issues at this time. He says he's flying Delta.
The biggest issues that I've seen over in Hawaii so far have been in Maui. I haven't seen anything in particular about the Big Island. That's not to say that there aren't issues there. I just may not be aware of them. Hawaii can handle a lot of weather until it can't.
Yeah.
So, I think you just got to keep a real close eye on local news throughout Hawaii because they're going to be the first ones that know when things really start to hit the fan. And maybe you got to think about how to pivot and maybe go to a different neighboring island if you're able to. Hawaii's climate is wild. I mean, I've been on Maui when it's been torrential downpour every single day, and I look at the radar, and Hawaii hasn't been touched.
Yeah, it is amazing.
So if you have some freedom, start thinking about that. But for now, I think just pay real close attention to the news.
Lawyer Tom writes that he flew out of MSP the morning of Saturday, March 6th to San Diego. Worst mess I've ever seen there. Clueless spring breakers and TSA agents calling in sick by droves. Over an hour to get bags checked. And another half hour to get through security. Thank God for TSA pre-check. Barely made the flight 3 minutes before the door was closed. On the way back, went to San Diego airport 3.5 hours before flight. We're through security in under 10 minutes. Crapshoot. And that's the moral of the story, right? You got to play it cautiously, I think, for peace of mind. But it's not going to be the same every place, whether it's the scheduling of the time that you're coming or going, or any number of other factors as well. That's just part of the deal at this point, correct?
Yeah, it's so unpredictable, and this just goes to show you, as much as I would love to tell everybody flying is great and travel is great and everybody should love it, I understand that it's not, in large part because it's so unpredictable. And you can not just go to, on different ends of your trip, flying out to San Diego and on the way back and have drastically different experiences getting through security. You can go to the airport on the same day, on a Saturday and then the following Saturday at the same time, and it can be a completely different situation. You can control what you can control, and the two things that you can really take in your hands in these cases are when you show up, knowing that earlier is always better, as painful as it may be, and having something like TSA PreCheck, which, if you're traveling, I would say twice or more a year, paying $78 for a 5-year membership, which I'm not going to embarrass myself trying to do the math on the annual cost, but it's not much. Having that to be able to get through quicker, in some cases significantly quicker, and they've since added, and I believe it's at MSP as well, most major airports, probably the 50 biggest in the country, touchless ID for PreCheck users, which makes it so much faster. Kind of remove some of the bottleneck in the lines to actually get through to, those security scanners. Anything that you can do to try to ease your path, I think at a time when tensions are high and there's a lot of confusion and things are changing fast, this is the time to start thinking about those things.
What's the other one besides TSA PreCheck? What's what's the other big one?
Clear,
yeah. So go ahead.
Clear has been, I have ragged on Clear a lot. It has been a total coin flip to the point that we're talking about of it being unpredictable. And something that they've done just within the past 6 to 9 months at many airports across the country where they have service, which is not all of them. It's something like 50. But including MSP, they've introduced these new, they're called Clear e-gates, where instead of walking into the line and talking with an agent and taking a photo and then getting escorted to TSA, you skip most of that until you get to the TSA checkpoint, where there's just now an electronic gate where you snap a selfie, it verifies that you're flying that day, and then the TSA agent just waves you through. The last few times I've gone through Minneapolis, granted this was before the shutdown got really bad, I basically never broke stride. So worst case scenario, it's probably going to save you a significant amount of time. Is it worth the money? I mean, Clear is $209 a year is the full rack rate compared to $78 for 5 years of TSA PreCheck. I know which one I'm choosing if I have to choose.
So for you, it's not always been, the latter hasn't been always reliable, you're saying? If when it goes good, it's great, but does it always go good? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. It's been a coin flip or worse at Minneapolis for most of the last few years. It's even worse than that at some other major airports across the country. It really just depends. But things, to me, Clear is now really worth considering for the very frequent traveler. Right. I don't even know if I would have said that, 6 months ago.
Does Kyle know of a place to check online for the length of the TSA lines at MSP at a given point in the day? Is there a place folks can check what the current wait time might be to maybe help them figure out how quickly they need to get to the airport?
Yeah, it's the Minneapolis Airport's website. So if you just search Minneapolis TSA wait times, they have a dedicated page with this. And in my experience, it is very accurate. Maybe not to the minute, but within a 5-minute rounding error, let's call it. And a lot of major airports have some version of this, most of which are pretty accurate. For a long time, people would talk about TSA has its own app where you can look at this, and it shows airports nationwide. But based on what I know about how they're collecting and calculating those estimates, that data is not reliable. So I would go straight to the airport source, including here in Minneapolis.
I assume you weren't born in 1970, or if I talked to you about a motion picture made in 1970, it wouldn't mean a lot to you. You're not that. You're certainly not. You're still a youngster, are you not?
Yeah, spot me 19 years and we're good.
Okay, I had a hunch of that. I bring it up because I don't think we talked about this before, although I have talked about it occasionally over the years. 1970, there was a motion picture, one of those all-star movie casts films including Jackie Bissett, Dean Martin, Burt Lancaster. It goes on and on and on. And it was a film called Airport, okay? And it was basically a drama about what goes on at a major metropolitan airport, and there's, personal stories, and there's airline stories, there's a hijacker sub-story, there's a whole bunch of them. And I bring it up because I've mentioned before on the show, and I don't know if you knew this, a lot of the interiors for that film were in Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport, done inside there. They presented it in the movie as this was Chicago, an airport in Chicago, but a lot of the interiors was actually done at Twin Cities International, or whatever we call it at this point. I don't know what we called it then, Minneapolis-St. Paul.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, I had no idea. I'm going to have to watch that.
I bet you,
right up my alley.
It's probably, it's cheesy in a lot of places. I would say it probably hasn't held up all that well over the years, but I just like the local angle of it, even though, as I said, it's presented as it's a Chicago kind of story. George Kennett, Helen Hayes is in it, Maureen Stapleton, a lot of old names that the old timers in the audience will know. And it's basically an old-fashioned disaster movie back before they became particularly popular. And then there were some sequels. I think there were a bunch of sequels, but Airport 1 was in part, they needed the snow. I mean, you're going to have the snow, right, for one thing. They didn't know how to manufacture it back in those days. And then, if you get up on that second floor when you're heading to the parking ramps, and you can look back towards the airport, in other words, above the main level terminal where there's some offices there, it still looks in part. It still looks similar to what you see in the movie. So yeah, I'm guessing if you could find it, you might have some fun looking at it at some point.
Yeah, no, I'm adding it to the list. Sounds fantastic. Cheesy is fine. I can do cheesy.
Every once in a while, it doesn't hurt. I appreciate the update. Hope you're doing well, and we'll talk soon. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Barrero.
Appreciate you. Kyle Potter, Thrifty Traveler, MN.com. And, of course, we've talked about this before. If you are someone, you don't even have to travel a lot. If you travel just a little, but you want deals, you want to look for deals, they've got some great offers there. And they've got some great subscriptions there that give you access to all kinds. Because there's some people who are really good about bargain shopping. And then there's a lot of people who want the bargains. They want to be alerted to special deals, but they don't know who to go to and where to find them. And they're really good. They are on top of that stuff. And so I think whatever the nominal subscription fee is, if you travel a decent, even if you don't travel a lot, but you want the deals, I highly recommend them. They've been great to work with and great for us as well. Let's do this. Let's pause for the top of the hour break. A couple interesting texts coming in, couple stories to follow up on as well as we prepare to wrap things up at 6:30 on a Monday edition of the Afternoon Hour. What was your favorite Anthony Edwards moment? He's out officially for tomorrow's must-win home game against the Phoenix Suns. Edwards has been dealing with, in this case, it's knee soreness. This isn't the chronic foot issue. This is knee soreness. You could tell yesterday he collided with, I want to say it was Nas. I don't remember who it was. Got up rather gingerly, and I know he always does get up that way, but I think that might have aggravated things a bit. Bottom line is he will not be available for the Wolves against the Suns. We are, I think, a game and a half ahead of the Suns.
Yes.
Who have the tiebreaker on us right now. So it's the old deal if you want to stay in front of them. Just like with Denver, you want to stay in front of them because I don't think we have the tiebreaker on anybody, basically.
Probably not.
Among many of the teams that we're competing with for some of the spots in the West. So Wolves are going to have to get it done without Edwards. And as we said, Nas is favoring a shoulder. And as you mentioned earlier, we have been incredibly injury-free, healthy compared to lots of teams. And now, further reducing the margin for error is the possibility that it's going to start catching up with us, and we're going to start having some injuries. So no Anthony Edwards for tomorrow night home game against the Phoenix Suns. A couple people listening to our conversation with Kyle Potter mentioned that one of them asked, have I ever heard of the motion picture Airplane? Of course I have. That film spoofed the Airport series that I was just talking with Kyle Potter about. The original part of it filmed, some of the interiors of the airport filmed at our airport, Minneapolis-St. Paul.
Where else would you film?
And so that was a drama, and then Airplane obviously spoofed it. I mean, I mean, there's a couple of scenes in Airport. Has it been out long enough to where I can give it away, or do you think there might be somebody who's going to rent it tonight?
Well, Kyle Potter is, but I don't know if he's listening.
By the way, I don't even know if you can find it via a rental. There's movies that go back to that period of time that I just assumed everything's available now, but I'm not even sure if it is. But suffice to say, there is a subplot of Airplane is that a very forlorn man, down on his luck, feels bad about his inability to provide for his wife. And so he decides to do what? I'm going to go to the airport. I'm going to file for insurance on a flight that I'm going to take. And I'm going to bring on board the airplane a briefcase that has a bomb in it.
Jeez, that's dark.
Extremely dark. And the idea was, well, I'm willing to sacrifice my life. And sadly, the lives of a number of other people have nothing to do with it. But then the assumption was, well, my wife, played, I want to say, by Maureen Stapleton, another accomplished actor, if you're old enough to know the name. She's going to get the money from the insurance. Him not understanding that's not really how it works anyway. And so there's a moment in the film on the plane where they come to understand. Dean Martin's the pilot, by the way.
Wow. Yeah,
And
Burt Lancaster, Dean Martin.
Yeah, George Kennedy is the big-time mechanic because they have naturally, all of this is happening during a snowstorm. Right?
Yep.
So planes are getting stuck on the tarmac, all kinds. It's George Kennedy with a big old stogie. He's biting on a stogie off the back, on the side of his mouth. Basically, all but, in this case, I think the plane had already been, the passengers were gone. He's trying to get it out of a snowdrift, and they're telling him, you can't keep accelerating that way, man. You're going to, it's no good. And he's bleep it. I don't care. I'm going to do it. I'm Petroni. I know what I'm doing. I'm going to get this plane out of there, which he eventually does. But in the movie, they eventually find out through security, they put two and two together that there's a guy on board with a bomb, which is always an interesting thing to hear if you're a pilot.
Yeah,
they're getting a report. I think Burt Lancaster gives them the news, who's the manager who runs the airport authority, whatever the case may be. And so then it's like, well, we got to try to get the bomb away from him, right? And they have a plan where they're going to try to distract him. It's an elaborate plan, and they just about have pulled it off because he's keeping the briefcase on his lap the whole time. He does not want to let go of it. When somebody else on the plane who's figured this thing out, as they're about to grab the briefcase, yells out, he's got a bomb! Like the worst panicky thing you could have from another passenger. And naturally, he then holds tighter onto the briefcase, sprints back to the bathroom, locks the door of the bathroom, detonates the bomb. At which point, the plane survives it, but there's major injury, decompression, the whole bit. That's just one subplot.
Goodness.
You'd think that'd be enough on its own? That's one of about 5 subplots to the motion picture. So, yeah, maybe you can find it. Airport, it's a lot of fun. And those of you who spent some time at the airport, like you have, I think will be able to. What I recognize were, like I said, there's like a bank of offices, like on the mezzanine above the main level. And I think those are still there.
They are.
It's amazing. A lot of other things, obviously. It's the greatest airport ever. A lot of other things have changed.
It really is.
Not so much. Airport Dan was a great flick with the Hall of Fame cast members. George Kennedy, as we were talking about, is the chief mechanic, worth the price of admission. The only thing the movie lacked were cameos from Sid Hartman and Louis, which is true. I didn't even thought of that.
Are we sure Louis wasn't there somewhere?
Well, he might have been there. That's true.
Just even as an extra in the background.
You travel, obviously. I wish I had the options that now exist regarding getting through airports fast back in the days when I traveled a lot. You travel certainly more than I do at this point. So are you TSA guy and clear?
Yes.
Is it, for you, it's worth doing both?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is. Yes, totally. Because I'm usually coming in hot, as I talked about on my commercials.
Yes.
Because I'm usually coming in after a show. But I'm also, I'm not the greatest test case because a lot of my flight times are the last ones out of town. Like on a Wednesday night, if I need to go to
That's true.
Cedar Rapids,
Right.
I'm taking basically the positioning flight to get to the smaller city. So I don't have to deal with lines too much, but it does still save a ton of time. And Kyle nailed it on the new clear thing that they have. You walk up.
He sounded iffy, though, on its consistency.
Depending on the airports.
Okay.
Indianapolis,
it's great, you said.
Indianapolis doesn't even have it.
Wow.
Indianapolis doesn't have any of the new TSA
they don't need
stuff.
it because it's run so well, you can just go through regular security and get out of there in 5 minutes.
I still can't believe how bought off the national media is. Given how cranky they are about everything, as you've taught me over the years, that the TSA pre thing, I can't even believe that they just still swallow this stuff. But as Kyle said, there's times where I have not broken stride. Like getting dropped off at the airport or walking from the ramp, walking over the Skyway, coming down, usually not checking a bag. Sometimes I do just so I don't want to deal with it. But it's, I'll walk in, they'll scan my boarding pass, I'll stand in front of this thing, they'll say the doors are open, and I'm gone.
You're gone.
It's crazy.
That's pretty good.
It's really good.
If you travel a lot, especially,
and honestly,
it's going to be worth the money.
The thing about both TSA pre and clear, in my opinion, like with my kids, for example, like when we've gone on spring break or we've gone on trips, whatever it was, the fact that they can just jump in with me, especially on clear, they can just come with me if they're under a certain age.
Yeah.
It just saves so much time
huge
and hassle with them.
For families, yeah, absolutely.
That's where I really, for me, it's just a first world, this is awesome when I'm traveling by myself.
Yeah.
When it's with like I could sit in a regular line when it's just me, no big deal. But when I'm bringing the kids and all of that, it's a huge time saver and just stress reliever, in my opinion.
I don't remember if my dad happened to be at the airport and someone said, "Hey, you want to make $20?" But he appeared as an extra in a crowd scene of that film that was filmed. Or he's saying at a crowd scene of a movie at MSP. Now, I don't know if he means the same movie or a different movie. Have you ever been to the Indianapolis airport, Dan? It would be hard to say it's not better than MSP. So that sounds like he's saying it is as good as MSP.
Well, that's just a poor choice.
Do you think that's PST?
Yes, I do. I absolutely do.
Interesting.
I slept in the Indianapolis airport one night.
Was that the time where we were traveling together and you missed the flight?
That's where I had to rent a car from the Indianapolis airport to drive to Midway.
That's right.
Because there were no flights. It was the day after the Final Four. Yeah. Everything was full. I had to get back.
And you overslept.
I did.
Right? I met you at the airport, or I was going to meet you at the airport again because we were going separately, and then you didn't show.
We were at different hotels.
Yeah, that's right.
I fell asleep in my chair. That was a bad feeling.
That's not a good feeling.
That was a long day.
That can't be a good feeling at all. By the way, the film Airport, a couple people are saying, is available at Amazon Prime.
There you go.
You want to rent it. And I bet you it's a good price, too, because those old movies, I think they might be a little bit cheaper. Might be kind of fun. It's something different. I haven't watched it in decades, I wouldn't say. Let's come back, wrap up the program. I got a quick A-section nugget to discuss, and then we will give you some details on what we have coming up the rest of the week.
Yeah.
Show wrap presented by American Pressure, commercial-grade pressure washer since 1975.
It's the Bumper to Bumper Show Wrap.
My only disappointment, from what I recall of the motion picture Airport that came out some 56 years ago, 1970, is that Dean Martin, who was a key character, or I should say key actor in the film as the head pilot, didn't sing. I wish they would have found a way to do some kind of singing interlude of some sort, given his voice, but they didn't do that. It was very dramatic. They were trying to play it as a serious suspense thriller.
For sure.
What life is like at a major metropolitan airport in the middle of a bomb threat during a blizzard.
It's a lot going on.
You got to have, but because that's the old, we don't trust the audience enough, so we got to pile crisis on top of crisis on top of crisis. And I didn't even get to a couple of the other ones. There's more. I want to leave some to the imagination for people, because I don't want to ruin it totally for people who are going to rent it tonight.
Crisis upon crisis is how you opened the show, wasn't it?
It's also true. That's a good callback to the fact that suddenly your Wild Club have lost, 4 out of 5?
Yep.
3 in a row at home to non-playoff teams. The general manager not pleased. And your Minnesota Timberwolves have dropped 4 out of 5 by an average of 20 points a loss. And now we come to find out that Anthony Edwards will not be available for our showdown game against the Suns, the team breathing down our necks, right? They're right behind us. Now, who's their villain player we were talking about with Johnny
Dylan
Athletic?
Brooks.
Dylan the villain is not available, but my guess is he'll still be there to stir it up from the bench, don't you think?
Of course.
He can't help himself.
Of course, yes.
I will tell you, Johnny described him as a very dirty player. Am I allowed to confess? I'd love to have him on my team.
He's one of those guys.
He's one of those guys. He can guard. He can do things. He can help a team. Now, he can't be your best player, obviously, but he can be very good. And is Phoenix not a testament to the fact that it's not always just about putting together names? Because they got rid of all but one of their names.
That's right.
And they've improved so dramatically from the team they were, which would indicate they're on a better course at least, right? They're not going for a title this year, but they got rid of everybody who mattered except the guard, right?
Devin Booker.
Devin Booker.
Yep, Book.
And yet they played better together. I haven't checked them out lately. I don't know if they're on any kind of a roll, but they're
overachieving.
100%. From the start of the season, they've overachieved.
Their records it's kind of similar to what they've been the last few years, but that's kind of the point.
Exactly.
Of how badly they had been underachieving.
Very true.
Like, you know how it's like when it's 50 degrees here on Friday, it's going to feel a lot different than when it's 50 in October? Their record right now feels a lot different than their record, which is pretty similar the last couple of years, because they don't have Durant, they don't have Beal. They just have who they have, and they're competing every night. Feels way different. Johnny
joined at 3:30. That'll be podcastable, downloadable later. In addition, Kyle Potter, Thrifty Traveler MN guy, joined us at 5:30 to talk the obvious travel nightmares related first to the weather here, now seemingly stabilizing back at the airport, and also the security concerns at some airports where workers are calling in sick because they're not getting their paychecks. Et cetera, et cetera. So on that, and then we ended up getting into, TSA pre-check stuff, the clear system, et cetera. So kind of a combo platter, as it often is with Kyle Potter. He joined between 5:30 and 6. We did do Ode to a Dead Guy today. One of the great international ink-stained wretches, covering stuff in pretty much every crisis zone in the world for the better part of 45 years. John Burns of the New York Times has died at the age of 81 years old. I am strongly urging the Wolves start Ayo Dosunmu, and guess what? They might now, because Anthony Edwards is not available. So
that's true.
I was saying just do it even when you have full strength and put Dante DiVincenzo back on the bench. But logically, I would think he'd be the guy, unless you just want to make sure you keep him off the bench and you go, who's our other guard?
Bones,
maybe Bones Highland. I'm not exactly sure. So tomorrow is a Louis day, so he will join. We'll see what his prescription is to fix the suddenly slumping Minnesota Wild, and if he has any nagging concerns that this might last a bit. And we'll work on a couple of other things as well. I want to get back to the Kyler Murray story with you. A couple developments there, too. That'll be all week. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 3 o'clock right here on The Fan.